Hi makers, it's Mars, otherwise known as Hey BrownBerry around the interwebs. Welcome to my podcast. If you're a returning viewer, I'm so happy to see you back here. And if you're new to this podcast, I'm very happy you've decided to check me out. This podcast is typically about the joys of making. And I find that making capital M is now expanding for me. I mostly talk about knitting, but things have been adding up in my making queue. So now I also have crochet projects on the go. I even have some spinning to talk about, and I've been very fortunate just to spend time making recently. So this episode will highlight some of that. It's summer here in North America, just about to be mid-July, and I'm still working with wool in a lot of my fiber crafting, and that's only odd because I live in the southeast United States and it's very hot. But I find wool so comforting to work with that my habits don't typically change by season. Maybe just my habit in what I wear, but not so much in what I stitch. So I'm happy that you've come to be part of this episode, and I hope that you'll take time to interact with me, connect with me. Obviously, you can comment at the bottom of this YouTube video, and you can find me on the other social medias like Instagram and Ravelry and connect with me there. So let's jump right into it. I decided to record this podcast sort of on a whim, and because of that, you'll see some things just kind of spliced together, and I'm not doing a whole lot of prep because that would just make it take longer to get this out to you. I have reached for some of the things that were already near me here in my craft room to show them to you. So the first thing I'm going to show you is a work in progress. And I'll use it as an introduction to talk about a trip that I took recently. I have started another crochet blanket. Those of you who've followed my making journey for a little while will know that I resisted the Cozy Memories blanket and the crochet blanket bonanza that I started to see around Instagram a few months back, but resistance was futile. I happily jumped on the bandwagon after a while and started a fingering weight crochet blanket. And now I've started a second one in worsted weight. Worsted and DK, really. There are details about this project on my Ravelry page, but in general, it's almost 80 inches across, and I'm making it with different wools from my stash. It is, at this point, all non-superwash, but I will most likely just add yarns to it as I go, regardless of whether or not they are superwash or all natural. The story behind this project is that I went to visit a now very good friend of mine, Maria. Ninja.Chickens, in her home in North Carolina. This trip just represented so many things. I may not be able to talk about it all in one podcast, but it was the first time I had done a road trip with my two daughters where I was the only driver and all three of us were traveling together. In conversation about this trip, Maria and I had discussed her starting a crochet project. She's done some crochet in the past, but was very interested in starting a granny stripe blanket of her own. And because we were going to visit her for almost a week, I thought a really great hostess gift would be a crochet hook with which she could start that project. Thankfully, Maria is well connected in the maker community. So she had mentioned to me a site called Bee Queen Collection. It's actually a business. Bee Queen Collection makes handmade tools like this. This is my new crochet hook from Bee Queen Collection. So I ordered one for me and one for Maria with these queen crown tops. Mine is made in guancalo wood and Maria's is olive wood. So I decided this would make a great hostess gift for her since she was putting us up for days and days, and it would be a way that we could connect and share a new crochet experience. And while she was there, we both started granny stripe blankets, and I actually was part of picking out the yarns for hers and included some yarns in mine that I also left with her so that we can have that continued connection even though the trip is now over. So I'm having fun working on this blanket. This is a size 5mm hook. It is very light. I can't endorse this enough. I mean, I'm trying to up my tool game when it comes to my notions and tools in my stash, and this feels like a really solid purchase. I'm having a great time working with it. It's very easy to hold, and I just love looking at it. So that was part of our trip recently, and I'm actually really enjoying working on the blanket because it goes so fast in these heavier yarns. While we were in North Carolina, we visited one of the more popular, I guess, a tourist site, which was the Biltmore Mansion, and we had an opportunity to walk around and explore on our own and view the gardens and some of the property. We did a self-guided tour with Maria and her daughter. Hey, Kaya. And I enjoyed that so much. The girls and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I'll share with you here some photographs that we took. I took a lot of pictures, especially in the gardens, because I was so enamored with the flowers and even some of just the furniture and other things that were out and about around the garden area and around the mansion itself. So check those out.
See, look at it. Here comes another one. Please don't bite me. Please don't bite me. I don't want to get this. They don't have teeth. They're still going to bite me.
I hope you enjoyed those views and florals as much as I did seeing them live. If you're ever in the Asheville area of North Carolina, I highly recommend the Biltmore as a stop on your journey. We had an excellent time. Moving on to one of the finished objects that I came back home to after the trip, I finished my most recent garment knit, which was the Mazzy cardigan by Elizabeth Smith. And here it is. To lean back a bit so you can see all of it. It's a long sleeve cardigan, which I've knit in KnitPicks Wool of the Andes. One of the special features is the collar and the front bands. These front panels have a small twisted cable detail. This is the colorway Briar Heather, a great yarn to work with. It's 100% wool. It's quite long. This sweater is actually for my mother-in-law. She requested it last fall, and I've been working on it sporadically since then, and I'm so pleased to be able to give it to her in the next couple of days. I hope to be able to insert some photos of her modeling the cardigan. And July in South Florida is probably not the best time to wear a full-length wool cardigan, but she actually works in a senior care facility, and it's meant to be her everyday sweater for when she's at work and something she can hang over her chair and have it as a warm reminder of how loved she is. And I cannot say enough about Elizabeth Smith and her pattern writing skills for Mazzy. I would knit this again in a heartbeat. I will very likely knit one for myself. I found the pattern very easy to follow. I found the shaping and details really useful. I think that even keeping the same pattern structure and making slight changes to the panels would be a great way to modify this and have a couple of them in the wardrobe as wardrobe staples. Again, information on this project is on my Ravelry page. I'm Hey BrownBerry over there if you'd like to get some more info. So that's a very recent FO that I'm pretty happy with. I've been doing quite a bit of travel this summer. One of the things that stands out as a highlight is a trip that I took with my daughter to Columbus, Ohio. As a 16th birthday present, I took her to Columbus to see her favorite band, 21 Pilots. They were playing in their hometown tour, and we got to see them on the second to last night of that tour. Check out some video here. What a blast, pretending to be young again. I often say that I am doing my best to be into what my girls are into. And I might not be a super fan of everything that they like, but I love seeing how they are when they get to explore something they're passionate about. Yeah, so there's benefit to that. Just seeing her in her element was pretty awesome. And like a good daughter and a fellow yarn lover, she was very happy to go with me to stop into a yarn shop and do some yarn shopping. I actually, for the first time, picked up some Opal yarns. So many of you out there who are knitters and crocheters are very familiar with Opal yarn brand. I got some sport weight to use for socks. I do typically knit socks in fingering weight, but I tend to have a very loose tension, so sport weight works well for me on the same size needles that most people would use for sock knitting. Somewhere between a US 0 and a US 3 for sport weight tends to make a nice fabric for socks. So my first Opal yarn purchase was for these. I probably should have put a brightness warning. Need your sunglasses for these. This orange self-striping, orange-based color just really called to me, and Adachi gave her vote for it amongst all the other colorways. I'll put the information about it below. But I loved every minute of knitting these. While we were in the yarn shop, I also picked up a new pair of needles. I'm calling them sock needles because they are size 2.25 millimeter needles, and they're Chowgoos with the red cable. So I have used Chowgoo needles before in a larger size and in the 9-inch circulars. And I do like their metal needles. I'm a fan of the cable that doesn't have too much memory. But I was just, trying out something that I could work smoothly with this yarn, which it's not scratchy by any means, but it definitely has a heft to it. And so I wanted something that, wanted set of needles that would allow the yarn to slide very easily. By the way, if I haven't talked about these before, these red sock blockers are from the Loopy U. Love them. Chalgoo needles, the red lace worked very well for this project. I think I would do exactly the same yarn combination and needle, same yarn and needle combo again. And I'm pretty happy to be adding these to my stash. So yeah, Adachi helped me pick out this colorway. Details on my Ravelry page. While I was in there, I picked up a new to me but well-known book or magazine called Making. This is volume 3, the Dots edition. I've already got a bookmarker in there because as I was flipping through the book in the store, I saw at least 3 or 4 things that immediately called to me, and that's sort of my marker for deciding to buy a book or a magazine. The bookmark is on the page for this Hope cardigan. Hopefully you can see that well. Oh, it's a bit blown out. That's better. So I intend to knit this. It's by Amy Christoffers because it's so simple, and that completely fits the aesthetic that I am going for in my garment knitting. I might make this for Adachi. It's got a really pretty sleeve detail. Or I might make it for me. Or I might do like I did with the breathing space sweater and make one for each of us. There are other things in this magazine that make it very appealing. There are recipes for baking. There are instructions for embroidery projects, quilting projects. And I was even tickled to see a bit of coloring book action, just a really easy magazine to flip through, which I've done multiple times since I bought it. I do intend to make more than one of the knitting projects in here. If you've got this magazine too, I'd love to hear what projects really appeal to you. And if we have similar tastes, it's possible we could make along together. So yeah, Making Magazine, Volume 3, highly recommend. That was another nice souvenir purchase. It's the summer of new skills here as well. Hopefully you got a chance to check out some of my Squam Art Workshops footage from my previous bonus episodes. And within those episodes, I talked about some of the new things I've learned. One of them was woolly tattooing, which is essentially embroidery, but not traditional embroidery. Embroidery with wool, for example, or embroidering onto wool and other fabrics. So adding to that new skill set and using some of the inspiration that I received from Squam, I decided to try another new thing this year, spinning. While we were in North Carolina, the girls and I attended a festival called the Firefly Gathering, and I'll put information about the Firefly Gathering here in case you want to attend next year. There were so many different classes for improving your skills in multiple ways: homesteading, farming, yoga practice, just, a lot of handcrafts, musically related things. And it was a great environment for us to be in. One of the classes that the girls and I took together, the 3 of us, was something brand new to us, which was learning how to spin with fiber on a drop spindle. This fiber, unfortunately, is unidentified. We took a class with Peace Weaver, and as part of the class, she had for sale drop spindles and fiber. And I just grabbed some. She was very generous with it. This is some of the leftovers. I grabbed some because I really got into hand spinning. And thanks to Maria's help when I got back from the class, I actually spun some yarn. So yeah, spinning is my new fun creative activity. Let's see if I can get it to focus there. So you can see the customary lumpy bumpy different weights of yarn that I've spun onto this drop spindle. I also bought this from Peace Weaver. And you can see that it's a bit inconsistent. It has some high twist and some low twist and some thick parts and some thin parts. It's yarn though, and I spun it myself. I've been having so much fun. I've been practicing every day, and thanks to Shanel of the pipernell podcast, who's running a spindle along, I have an excuse to do this along with other new and experienced spinners. So I've just been working my way through this fleece, which I believe is a combed top, because I haven't had to do any real prep other than a little bit of pre-drafting. Thanks to having these supplies available, I've been working on spinning some of the yarn. This has now been plied with the help of Mazzy. I two-plied this brown. It's very thick. Here's some unplied yarn that we're going to practice plying with. I even managed to get a couple samples. So the difference between the sample that I did that day in class, which is really thick and not at all consistent, and the two-ply that I worked on a few days later is pretty significant. I am definitely seeing progress between the two, but I love them both. Yeah, so just made some notes as to the date that I did it and so on, and I'm having fun with it, which is the most important thing. Learning new skills can be humbling and challenging and enjoyable. And it was extra fun for me to learn this new skill with the girls.
So I'm going to take a little piece, I'm going to tie it on here, like that. So don't try to make every little bit of your yarn perfect. You're going to like screw up a bunch of it. And everybody like screws up their first yarn, so just make it messy. And then once you're done, you'll make better yarn. And then once they're kind of married on, then you're pretty good, because this stuff's already like blended together. Maybe blending's a better word for it. You get it? There you go.
Okay, so
There you go.
Wait, is this still on?
Yeah, do a little bit more. So you're ready. You're ready. You're ready. See that?
Does it help you to
stand up easy?
When you're about
Do you want to
there.
stand
See
up?
that? When you can get about this much smoothly out, you're ready.
Alright, I'm ready too.
You're ready. You're ready. And just twist it. Oh, you need a little piece.
Hachi, how does it feel?
Very nice.
Yeah.
This location.
And then you pull it. See how you're getting there?
You know, we struggled through it together at first and then really felt proud of what we were able to accomplish in just an afternoon class. And I have been doing a little bit almost every day since then. And from all of my friends who are spinners, from what I can tell, that's how you get better. So yeah, I'm going to keep going with that. And Pipernell's spindle along has been great encouragement. So if you are a spinner, whether a rookie or a complete veteran, I encourage you to check out that make along as well. Well, dear friends, that's it for this episode. One quick announcement. I have closed the BrownBerry Chronicles podcast Ravelry group, and I have actually changed the name of this podcast to the Hey BrownBerry podcast. A little bit easier to say and matches all of my other social media presence. So you have enjoyed the debut episode with the new podcast name. I closed the Ravelry group because I actually would love to focus more on making and more on connecting with all of you. And I have a very busy work and travel schedule, so I wasn't able to be part of the group as much as I wanted to as a moderator. And those of you who are out there were very understanding about that, and I feel like we had a great year, an excellent run, and I'm happy that we connected. I'm still on Ravelry as Hey BrownBerry. I still have quite a lot of presence on Instagram. I love being out there and checking out your projects. So you can connect with me in those places as well as here on YouTube. I will post show notes in the video description for the podcast, and that about covers it. So thanks for being here. I hope to connect with you soon. Happy making. Bye.